Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to another episode of A Soldier Speaks English channel. And if you have not subscribed to the channel so far, I'm hoping that you will now and you will share the channel as well. And today I've brought back a very, famous and very liked program format, Adil and Sabine show, Beyond Politics, Heart to Heart. And I've got my sweetheart with me today. For those of you who don't know her, I'll ask her to introduce you, and then we will discuss that why she does not turn on the camera. But that is because of the security situation. We are in a complex situation in which I have got a public space, but I have to protect my family. But I think I've already talked too much. So I welcome you, Sabine. And would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, especially the new audience?
Hello. Yes, I can. Your introduction was quite famous. Since when have I been famous?
You
No,
are
I'm not.
famous for the Twitterati. You're very famous and very ferocious
Right.
at the
Okay.
same
Yeah.
time. Famous and
So,
ferocious is the word, yeah.
okay, ferocious when needed, not all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Anyway, so as an introduction, everybody knows I'm your wife.
That's not
I'm
your only introduction, is it?
No, not at all. I have a lot of things going on. It's just, I think, because of the situation for the past 3 years, I've been very wary about sharing my personal details, and I'm trying to obviously pick out the things that I feel that are not going to be a threat to our security. So, yeah.
I'm
Um,
asking you to introduce yourself, your background, your studies, where you were born, for example. How come
yes,
you made the
I
mistake of marrying a Pakistan Army officer and moved all the way, quit your job, move all the way to Pakistan? And what was your educational background? That kind of stuff, please, which is already in
Right.
the.
I think you've actually already given our introduction. So do I need to carry on? Yeah, but I will. I was born and raised in the UK. I belong to Pakistani parents of Pakistani heritage. I belong to a long-standing um, military family, I would say. My ancestors and everybody, I mean, even before Pakistan, India was formed, I belong to a generation, not generation, I would say like generations of military personnel. And I think we have warrior genes in us, and that's exactly probably why we're still fighting, and I'm fighting with you without batting an eyelid. Apart from that, I grew up, as I said, in a small British town, English town. And I studied law at university, and then I went on to do a master's in law and human rights in university. And I believe that my experiences have forged and made me become who I am today, good or bad. The experiences, and anyone who witnesses what I do and what I say on X, I think they can decide for themselves. So yeah, that's a
All
small
right.
introduction.
Sabine, taking it from there, what is your experience of doing the LLM in law? In human rights at the London School of Economics and Political Sciences, in particular, where there were Pakistani diaspora there studying with you, and the Indian diaspora as well. So, what was
Hmm.
the experience in LSE like?
Well, I think it depends on my experiences of the people that were studying at that university from Pakistan or from India was different to the people that were born and raised in the UK. So I would find that
Wow.
the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, please go on.
Okay, because it was quite an elite university, and I, coming from quite a humble background, I would say, even though obviously we were aligned with the military in Pakistan, in the UK, I would consider it to be quite humble. I studied at a state school, as you would call it. I studied, it was a grammar school, but at the same time, it was a state school. I did my A levels at a grammar school. So despite that, when I got to that point, after first of all, I went to Middlesex University first, and then I did a BA in law and English, and I progressed from there and went and done, well, obviously, you know the rest. But I found that the people that came from abroad, from India and Pakistan, very similar. I wouldn't say the same. There were obviously subtle differences, but because it was an elite university, because it was such a high top rating, top ranking university, we got the richest elites from those countries coming there. And they had, well, I don't want to say like everyone there is like that, but they had a very big, um, what's the word I'm looking for? They were incredibly arrogant. They thought that they were better than everybody else, and they looked down on everybody,
You're
and they had
talking
their
about
own little groups.
you're talking about both Indians and Pakistanis, or only
Yes.
Pakistanis here?
Yeah, but because of my Pakistani background, I got to know the Pakistan society more and all of the other people. I decided to sort of obviously step away from them because I didn't feel comfortable. But then mostly anybody that came from an international background who happened to have very high up, uh, politically, aligned family members, fathers, brothers, I don't know, anything, who were there for a reason and most probably paid their way through. They were incredibly arrogant, stuck up, treated everybody as if they owned them and they were their personal slaves. So I didn't have a very good experience. There were good people amongst them, but I didn't have a very good experience. And because LSE has a culture where it doesn't have that community vibe as such, it just continues to obviously have individualism, and they do have their groupings. And as I said, the Pakistan Society, Indian Society, etc. But I personally kept myself to myself. So I didn't have a very good experience of people from Pakistan coming to that
Yeah,
university.
now you're saying it. So you didn't have good experience from people from Pakistan because they came from feudal lordships background, and I know few of the people who were your class fellows, which included the family of Sharif and some very high up
They
people
weren't my
came.
class fellows. They were way before I came into there, but we
Yeah.
knew about them. Anyway, we'll go on and forget that topic. But the
All right,
problem.
all right. Yeah, yeah. So you had no interaction with the Indians, and if not, why
No,
not?
I did. I did have interactions with Indians. Even before I went to that university, I had Indian friends and I had a few friends in India. But as I mentioned before, they were from the UK, born and raised here. They had a different outlook in life. I'm not saying everybody was perfect.
What
Nobody
is
on both
that
sides.
difference? What is the difference basically between the South Asian raised, born, brought up, and raised? I know it, but I need to know your answer, not for me, for the wider audience. I'm sure they'll be interested to know that what is the difference between the South Asians born and brought up and raised in the UK. All right, the Pakistanis are stuck up. You've already said it, and
No, 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 no.
they think they're
Pakistanis are
entitled.
not stuck up. No, no.
The one who
The,
coming from there, the one who coming
no,
as
no.
part of the
Can I
diaspora, they
explain?
come and say it. Please go on.
No, the actual the people that were coming from Pakistan to that particular university because of their statuses, because of the money that they had, because of their backgrounds, political, otherwise bureaucracy, all of those people had that kind of an attitude. They pretended to be nice to your face, a very hypocritical attitude, one where they felt that everybody was below them, etc. But that's how it works, because I think any country, including this country, has that too. Because I've heard a lot of people who go to Oxford, they say that when they go there, they feel incredibly belittled by the elites of the UK. So it's basically it's a class difference. It's like people of that class treat people as if they're their servants or however. So no, not everybody from Pakistan. There were some really decent people there as well, and I'm not going to say, and there were some decent people from India as well. But as I mentioned, the class that they belonged to dictated the way they behaved with other people.
So comparatively, while you were
Hmm.
studying in the LSC, London School of Economic and Political Sciences, and later on in your career, do you find any difference in Indians and Pakistanis in particular? Their attitudes, their upbringing, their work ethics. Do you find any difference there? Did you find any difference there?
Very subtle. Subtle in the sense they have a very similar culture. They have differences. I would say, I mean, obviously, because of the religious aspects, when it came to Hindu Muslims, you found differences, attitudes, you found differences. But as I mentioned, we were talking about the people that were born and raised in the UK. Those people were incredibly humble. the ones that I interacted with anyway. And obviously they came from state schools as well. So for them, it was a case of obviously getting into a university due to merit, not because their fathers had enough money to be able to pay to get into that university internationally. So a lot of them were very hardworking, and that includes the Indians, includes the Pakistanis. The differences obviously were subtle due to their parents and the background that they came from. But in general, the main difference I found between Indians and Pakistanis from Pakistan and the UK was that they didn't have that air of superiority in the UK as they did from back home.
So the people who were born and brought up in the UK had humble. They were humble. They were brought up to be,
More humble, not
yeah,
it
humble.
takes a lot of hard work to get into LSC, so it wasn't easy for them to get in. So yes, a little bit of arrogance does come in, where they do believe that they are obviously more intellectually superior, but it wasn't a case of, well, everybody is
Yeah,
our servant, they have to
yeah,
do what we say or get rid of them. Or
yeah. Little bit of arrogance. You say, all right, I know where it's coming from. Yeah. So yeah.
so
All right. So
we were
moving forward.
discussing. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, carry on.
Yeah.
You were
Moving
asking.
forward. If you want to say something, please go on, because I've got a next question lined up. Then.
No, I was just, obviously you were asking about the differences between the UK born and the Pakistani born. So I was just going to suggest to you that the background does matter. And it depends if in Pakistan how you were raised as well. So it has a lot to do with the way people were raised. I find that a lot of parents do feel that they have been lacking in certain areas in their life, and they overcompensate with their children. And when they do that, the children do end up becoming entitled. They end up becoming incredibly I'd say rude to people. Their humility is non-existent, and I think that's something that every parent needs to tackle. Because at the end of the day, they're raising children to send off into the world, and when they do that, and those children become a burden, I don't think they're doing a very good job
All right.
for this
All right.
world.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, Sabine, once you were growing up in the 80s, I would say, once you were, I'm sure you were very small. I mean, in the 80s, we were not even school going, maybe. We were toddlers. But in the late 80s and the early
Mm.
90s, once you were school going, and in that age,
Mhm.
South Asian faced racism in the UK, the Indians and Pakistanis.
I think for me, growing up in the town that I did grow up in, we were surrounded by a majority of white British, and we were a very small minority. I'll give you an example for this. We moved to the outskirts of our town, and at that point, I was the only Pakistani or only coloured child in that school. It was a first school. I'm not sure if it's a middle school or a first school, but I was quite young, and I was the only Pakistani child there. Then my brother came, and he was the second Pakistani child. We were literally the only ones that we could see, and that included black, that included Indian, that included any other nationality. So it was all British white, and then it was us two. We stuck out like a sore thumb. But
Wow.
then we did grow up. In the beginning, we were on the other side of town where there was a small community of Pakistanis. There was one Pakistani shop there, and we didn't feel that. I was very, very young at that point, so I didn't actually know if there was any racism or not. But as soon as we moved to the other side where there was only white majority, I did start feeling racism. But I was an incredibly strong-willed, and you can call me stubborn or hot-headed, whatever you want to call me. I didn't start to feel pressured by the fact that I didn't fit into their culture, because growing up in a Pakistani household in the 80s and the 90s, it was incredibly difficult for our parents to accept that we were living in a country whose values did not align with the values that they brought back from Pakistan. So it was a very, I wouldn't say torturous, but it was a very painstaking, um, I would say, painstaking momentum in the family where they would try to get the children to align with Pakistani culture. They would try to obviously tell them about the roots, and we idolized Pakistan. Let's just say that, and we didn't have any interaction with Indians.
Was
So
it a you idolized Pakistan? Was it a disappointment once? Not in the childhood,
well,
but now you know the
we'll
circumstances
get
there.
there. We'll get there. So we're talking about India. India was basically only in Indian films for us. We used to watch Indian films heavily. There was a heavy use of Indian films in our family, despite the fact that obviously we belong to a military background and
What
everybody
was
was
that
like, no,
movie? What was that movie of Kajol and Shah Rukh Khan in which
Dil Wale Dulhania.
Dil Wale Dulniya Le Jayenge?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
how many
yeah.
times did
And
you watch that?
at least about 10 times. I don't know how many times, but we grew up on Indian
Is that why
movies.
you married me? One of the reasons why you married me,
Why? You didn't go
because
to
you had
Europe.
that romantic, out of
No, 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 no,
story,
no. No. By the time I married you, it was a completely different situation because I
Yeah.
think we'd learned that they were we at that age where everyone's very naive, and we grew up on Indian movies. That was the only interaction we had had with Indians at that point in time.
All
We
right.
obviously had a love hate relationship back then as well, even though it wasn't as bad as obviously the ones you probably had in Pakistan. We
Yeah.
were told by our elders that India is Pakistan's enemy and
Mm,
Bangladesh is a traitor
mm,
country. So it was like growing up, we had these sort of viewpoints. And even though obviously they probably didn't know any better either, but these are the viewpoints we had about the two countries. When I went to university, that was the first time I stepped out of the town. And that's when my interaction with Indians and um, different nationalities began. I studied in London, obviously, and the town that I lived in was just, I'd say, about an hour, just a train drive away from where I studied. But that's when I made friends with Indians. One of my best friends was Nisha, and she was a Gujarati Indian. It gave me a completely different perspective. But as I mentioned before, she was born and raised in the UK. We didn't have that prejudice that I think people in Pakistan and India have against each other, which I felt was incredibly heartwarming because of the things that we had heard. Not, it wasn't a consistent drumming in that India is bad, but we had like that idea that no, India is our enemy country. So when we found Indian friends and Pakistani friends and we all mixed together and we all had fun, we looked similar. I wouldn't say the same, but we looked very similar. We had similar sort of likes and dislikes. So it was a period of reflection for me when I realized that we're all the same. So these things do teach you tolerance, and I do believe that traveling and learning and education, all of these things teach people tolerance, which is why I'm such an advocate for people to travel and to study.
all right. So, Sabine, we will talk more about this if the people want us to talk more about this in the comment section. We will continue this discussion. I'm sure people want to listen, and they want to listen to you in Urdu as well, which is called Hindi. I mean, it's written different but understood the same way. Well, we'll come to that. But for now, I just wanted to ask you this. Moving forward, because of the paucity of time, I just want to move forward. I want to move forward to the era in which Sadiq Khan became the mayor and Rishi Sunak became the prime minister. Once you were growing up, you and your friend, best friend, Indian Gujarati friend, what was her name? Sorry, you've
Nisha.
been Nisha and you. Did Nisha and you ever thought that you will have a Pakistani origin mayor of London and the Indian origin prime minister of the UK?
Um, I think when we were growing up, anything seemed possible. The country wasn't racist as much as our forefathers had experienced. My grandfather, my father, I think they built a foundation for us, which was very safe. We had a lot of tolerance. We had a lot of diversity. There weren't that many immigrants at that point in time. So people were largely accepting of our communities because we had settled in, we had made a name for ourselves, we were getting educated. A lot of them obviously were doing bad things, but that was universal. Anybody can do bad things. So it wasn't a case of like,
What do you
all
mean by bad
Pakistanis were
things?
labeled.
What do you mean by bad?
Drug dealing, fraud, all the typical, stereotypical things that are associated with
So
certain people.
एक मिनट मुझे ये बताओ कि they say that the Pakistanis are involved in the drug dealing, once I find the reports, Indians are equally involved. So, do you think it is a
Mhm.
South Asian thing, or it is only a Pakistani thing in the UK? Once you talk about this dodgy business in the UK.
No, I think it's universal. I think because they look so similar, people get confused. I think that drug dealing was a quick get rich quick thing, which started to take off, and people thought, okay, it's better than studying, and it's better than working hard to get to a point where you can actually get the money or earn money yourself and become rich. So it's it's the easiest way to get rich and show off. And I think this came from the part that we're showing off in front of your relatives in Pakistan, which is still a thing, came into where you're respected for your money. And this became a phenomenon in Pakistan. I remember the time when I used to sit with my grandfather or my grandmother, and they used to tell us stories about how people were respected for their wisdom. People were respected for their honesty and their uprightness. And I think that slowly changed as time went on, and people started respecting you for your money. And when they started respecting you for the money, people, not everybody could achieve it without doing something illegal. So that's where that started from. They had to show off to their relatives back home. And when it happened, they just felt that ego boost and they just wanted to do it again and again. That's why I know a lot of parents that did not stop their children from doing these things just for the fact that they felt that it made them or their status higher in the eyes of their family members. But yep, that's how that worked.
I
But
see.
you,
See,
mhm,
there's a debate going on. Once Rishi Sunak was the prime minister, a lot of Indians, 1 million plus Indian workers came in to the UK. So the first question based upon that is, and now wheresoever we go, we see South Indian restaurants popping up, and the food is fabulous. By the way, whether I've got no prejudice there. The food is
mhm,
fabulous. To some of them, like where we go to Shrilitha and these guys, we had this thing like your brothers. They don't go to the all vegetarian restaurants, right? And they still don't go, and they're born and brought up here. And I
mhm,
never used to go. You took me there, and once I had that dosa, and in Dubai, people asked me to have dosa. I'll say no. But once I had dosa over here, or I had pav bhaji, I don't like pav bhaji. I like dosa better. Okay, and samosa chaat is a bit different, but fabulous. All right, but there, wherever you go, you'll find South Indians working. The
mhm.
Pakistanis as well. Like the other day on the M6, we met a Peshawari guy. What a fabulous guy you are, man. And he didn't charge me extra for upgrading the car charger. And he said that, well, Adil bhai, I know you. And I thought, well, are you from Pakistan? He said, yes. Anyway, where shall we go? We find South Indians. All right. Wheresoever the working lot right now after PM Rishi Sunak are the Indians in majority, South Indian,
Mhm,
and of course
mhm.
North Indian as well, the majority South Indian. Do you think the Indians are taking over the Pakistanis in the UK? That's a
I,
question.
I think India is a bigger country. It has more of a bigger population, a bigger workforce. The differences I noted and I have been noting since this has been happening is that the Pakistani diaspora or the people that came from Pakistan back in the days, late 50s, 60s, 70s, even the
Hmm.
80s and 90s, they were focused on building the country. Now, the country after the war was literally going down, and they needed people from the Commonwealth, and
Yeah.
whether that was from India or from Pakistan, only the uh, labor forces were called into the UK, so they could help rebuild the country in industries and in all of these different places where they could actually become labor force,
Hmm.
not IT specialists like the Indians are. The visa process was completely different then. They needed labor. Now they need people with
You didn't
intellectual
need a
skills.
visa if you're a member of the Commonwealth. My grandparents shifted in the 60s. They said all you needed was to prove that you're a member of a Commonwealth, and maybe a Russian card of Pakistan, and you'll get the residency and the
I think
nationality.
not many people were actually coming to the UK then because they all felt that they wanted to stay where they were. I think obviously familiarity is the key, that they wanted to stay where they knew where they were. It was very daunting for the people, to the prospect of going to a different country and becoming a slave or a servant, and that's what they thought. But the people that came from Pakistan, they started saying, well, this isn't the kind of labor that we were told that we would have to do. This is actually quite easy. They worked long hours. They worked double shifts. They did so much hard work. I think they probably only slept 2 to 3 hours a day just to make sure that they earned enough to be able to send back to their families. They had this mindset that they were going to go back. They were earning so that they could make enough so that they could go back and live comfortably. But then with time, I think after their children started coming, and then they had children, and they started seeing that the lifestyle and the life was better in the UK than it was in Pakistan, they decided to stay here. And it's the same with the Indians. I think North Indians are the ones that were called over to the UK back in the days, especially the Sikh community. So that's why we saw a lot of Sikhs, and we sort of saw a lot of Pakistanis together, but not as many South Indians. Now the criteria for immigration is completely different. They're looking for skilled workers. They're looking for educated people, I think, which is a development, because they don't need to build the country up anymore. Now what they need to do is they need to have people who control the IT sectors, banking sectors, people who have that intelligence, who have that experience. And because of the fact that the UK, the workforce in the UK is decreasing, because you see white British, even the people that are born and raised in the UK, are not wanting to do any of the jobs that the people that are being called over for are doing. So they have to have immigration, and they've had they had a different set of opportunities. I think if educated people were called back in the 60s and 70s, we would have a completely different diaspora in the UK now.
Final question for this part. It's already been running almost half an hour. We thought we'll finish it in 20 minutes because people's attention span is like too big. You are throwing this powder down, and Mama is going to sort you out. Don't throw this powder down. Your creatine powder down. And I'm recording, and the world is going to see sorry, what kind of a messy sons we've got. All right, I'm sorry for this, Sabine. I had to, because otherwise तुमने मेरी जो है
I
ना
think ये she
बड़ा
वाला
मुकाबला
word आपने जो किया ना, मुझे इस वक्त ख्याल आ रहा है इसका. ये she कर रहा है इस वक्त.
All right, we're recording right now, right? All right, so final question: are the Indians more hardworking than the Pakistanis? This is a general point of
No.
debate. No. All right.
I think they're equally hardworking.
Yes. They are hardworking. He's saying yes, they are hardworking. Your son is saying they are hardworking.
That's because he's lazy. Comparatively to him,
because
they
the
are.
world is watching. I'm not going to edit this video, so let's say he's saying both.
यार इसको चुप कराएं.
All right. So, all right.
इसको चुप कराएं.
अच्छा, चुप कर जाओ तुम भाई. Okay, चुप कर गया. So Sabine, what are your reasons? You think both groups are hardworking?
I do believe. I mean, if
मामा से जो है ना मुझे रगड़ा लग जाएगा, इसको भी पता है, बड़ी चीज है ये. So Sabine, both groups are hardworking, you say, and like you.
No, I'll tell you why I believe that both groups are hardworking. I think if you look at manual labor, you see Pakistanis, and I just told you before, when they came into the UK, they suffered from racism, they suffered from all sorts of prejudices, and I believe that they were building the foundation for all of these people that are here now. You see people who are coming from Pakistan, and they make fun of the diaspora that have already settled in this country for the past 60, 70 years, or however many years you want to say. They were the ones that built the foundation. They worked day, night, and all of the hours that nobody else wanted to work. And they made a place for the people that are coming in that they feel so at home because of. So I think the hard work, if you want to talk about manual labor, you have different jobs or different things that people want to go for. Whereas you have the Indians who've studied IT, you've studied in management and studied in all of these things because this is the kind of thing that they feel inclined towards. And you've got doctors from Pakistan, you've got doctors from India. So what sort of hard work are we talking about? Yes, they are hardworking. They have work ethics, but so did the Pakistanis. And now maybe they don't want to work as hard. You have
All right.
people who wanted to have their own businesses.
Yeah.
You have taxi drivers who wanted to obviously. Do you think they don't work hard? They work hard as well.
Yeah, they
So
do.
it's everywhere. It depends on your own personal work ethics. But yes, you do have people from both sides who want to get rich quick and who do things with shortcuts. But that's human nature.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for the first episode of relaunch of Adil and Sabine Heart to Heart Beyond Politics. Please tell us which topics do you want us to discuss in future, and I am going to take up a very contentious topic: grooming gangs of the UK, a British Pakistani perspective and a British South Asian perspective on this. And Sabine has got a lot of research and insight into it, and we will take on the
So
topic
Adil, we should have
quite
done that
professionally.
today. We
No,
should
no,
have
no, no,
done
no,
that today
no,
because
no, no.
I was
That's too
completely.
heavy. That's too heavy. That's too
I
heavy.
was,
Okay, let's
this
see the
topic.
response. Let's see the response to this video, and let's see
No, but
if people want to.
do you know what you did? You've literally, like, when you told me about this topic, I was like, what do I talk about? What do I
Yeah,
talk
no.
about?
While I swear, while we were talking, I wrote it down that this is going so well. So I just wrote it down that this is going to be the next topic. That's why I'm saying, yeah, introducing the next
Fine.
topic. All
Next
right.
time I'll come prepared, and I really want to apologize to everybody if I sounded a bit, off. But yeah, I wasn't prepared.
Oh no, you're always awesome, Sabine. Always
Oh
awesome.
my god! Oh my god!
See you soon, babe. See you soon. Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay.
thank you so very much. See you soon, all right?
Take care.